Then we come to the notion of equality. So those young people in that group don't label each other as better or worse, more able or less able, I'm in this set or that set. They relate to each other as individuals who are part of that group, who have particular needs and interests. And they honour the humanity of the other people. They don't put labels on their foreheads and say, oh, you're a such and such. And our education system, our schooling system, rather, at the moment, is absolutely rife with this. And we're never going to get anywhere until we address those fundamental issues.
What would be important, do you think, as a team player? Because it's not like tennis or a solitary sport, you know, one that you're playing on your own. You're actually playing as a team.
There's a third thing to mention, which is the importance of care. In other words, caring for each other. And by myself, as a member of a group, caring about contributing towards the learning of another person in the group, that makes a massive difference.
Would it be helpful to have James reading back those questions to you, Lauren, so you can think about what's been covered so far?
What university did you go to and why? What courses did you take? How did you get into coaching? What was your career path?
Thank you, James. That's great. I think we need to move on to John's time. John wants to be a writer. That is his sort of long-term goal. And one way he decided of making progress with this goal was to meet a real author. Now we've got to decide what questions we're going to ask Jane Hissey this afternoon.
How do you plan out? That'd be quite an important one.
Maybe that could be the last question. She can sort of show you the sort of things that she does.
Yeah, it's quite tricky to know what the best way is. We have to be very careful thinking about what needs to be asked at the beginning and what needs to be asked at the end. What are your thoughts about that?
What we could do is we could let her do her main talk first, and then any questions that she hasn't said or if anything she hasn't explained after, we could always ask her.
Mm-hmm. John decided that he felt quite uncomfortable doing all the questioning for himself, and the group were very happy to take turns and to support him with that by asking questions as well. So how are you going to organise the questioning?
Everyone, person asks a question at a time, we go around the table.
What courses did you take?
I did in my degree, I did geography and sports science as a combined degree.
How did you get into coaching?
Okay, well originally it's obviously through teaching, and then with my love for netball and my enthusiasm for netball.
I think it allows students to see that learning takes place not just in the classroom, it takes place in a whole range of environments.
Hello, James, Sean, Caroline, and Lauren. Right, and I'm John.
I think it did throw them to begin with, because, you know, it's like asking someone what they want for Christmas. The list can be very long and you know, very exciting, but they needed support in actually narrowing down things down to a manageable focus, so that they could engage in a project that meant something to them.
Is it right if we go around asking questions?
What is it like being an author?
Well, it's great fun at times. It can be quite lonely, especially if you're stuck for ideas and you're working in a bit of a vacuum. And then the next stage is this stage. See if you can tell me what this is.
Does everyone have their agendas?
Yeah. I think we started off, it's quite awkward because it's quite hard to talk about yourself for a long time.
I had serious doubts at the beginning.
Yeah, me too. I was just sort of like, is this just a big waste of time?
Yeah.
£115 left. I think once you got into it more and you looked back on it, you realised how much it did help.
I definitely benefited from it.
Yeah, a lot.
Before I started the learning group, I was kind of burying my head in the sand and just assumed that, well, I didn't really plan ahead, and I didn't think about what universities I was going to go to. Joining the learning group sort of helped me to plan my future, really.
Through doing this, I think it made me take a step back and look at what was important to me and how
I manage your time.
How I could better organise my time and do everything to the best of my abilities, because I am a very disorganised person, full stop.
Generally, if there's something that I don't really want to learn about, I don't pay attention and I'll just muck around. I work a lot better with the things that I want to do.
One of the things that stood out for me actually with the group that we're currently working with in Year 8 is they're a group of students that possibly are the ones that maybe get sent out of lessons more, that have some behavioural problems. And one of the boys spoke to me a couple of weeks ago and said, when are these groups ending? And I thought he meant, I want them to end quite soon. And he said, because I want it to carry on, and can they carry on next year? Because I've learnt more in the 5 meetings that we've had than I have in my entire school life.
Because then you can put into the stories what you want to put into the illustrations.
If you're reaching students on that level, it has to be positive, and it has to then affect what they then do in the classroom.
At the start of a programme, well, we typically would have a briefing session, and we would also bring in parents so that they understand this, and parents are always invited in at the start.
Did you manage to get to talk to them?
Yeah, I did.
When
we evaluated at the end and parents came back in, as I say, they were one round in terms of saying how effective it was.
She started coaching outside of school for Hailsham.
The curriculum is already overcrowded, so we would need first to sort of demonstrate the advantages of the approach to the teachers. I think if they began to see the increase in motivation amongst the students, then, you know, obviously it's going to make the time go further if the students are more involved, more interested in working harder.
It's a holistic approach, so it's looking at the whole person, not just about what you want them to achieve by 14 or by 16 or by 18 or 19. And so one of the things that schools would need to do is to look at how to sustain it. And we've been fortunate because we've worked with the University of Sussex, and we've had additional funding to provide learning advisors to come in and train our staff and work with students. But I think the key for any school is making it sustainable.
If you look at the new legislation in terms of workforce reform and the kind of ways that teachers and adults other than teachers, learning support assistants, are being asked to work now, this actually fits very nicely into trying to imagine a different way of working with young people.
Would it be helpful for Christine to give you a hand with that, John?
What we've done this year is we've looked at ways of using our non-teaching support staff.
Christine's my co-advisor, and this is a way of training that we use in order for people to gain the confidence to run learning groups for themselves.
I've done 5 years as a teaching assistant, which actually sets me up very well for the job that I do now.
This person-centred approach starts from a view about how we become people. And basically it's saying that we don't do that on our own. It's saying that we become persons through our relations with others. And if you start to translate that into practical realities of a school, it means that you understand that young people learn best and flourish as human beings when they're in close partnership with other young people and with adults.
People learn when they interact with other people. Learning happens through relationships. It's not about a teacher necessarily standing up in front of young people and telling them what to do. It's giving young people the opportunity to talk with each other.
Often young people go through an educational system never having thought about what it is to be a good learner.
If we can do it with the younger students, then what we're doing is equipping them with skills and interests that's going to take them right through the next 7 years or so of their education.
Our aim is basically, how can we help these students to lead a good life in the future? When people say what you're about, I'm saying that's it, it's simple, you know. They need to lead a good life. Good has to be defined by that person, not by us.
It's interesting to hear what other people want to do with their lives, and it's useful to get their input on your plans.
I think it's the best thing in school, really.
I have learnt like better sort of look back and think it's not worth getting really stressed about things. It's better to devote your time to things you really need to and things you really want to, and also have time to enjoy yourself.
Things you ought to feel
Because
you
at the
ought
end
to
of the
be doing.
day we are 16.
Yes.